Because my legs had turned black, he thought that there was gangrene coming on. He thought that there was no oxygen getting to my tissue.
Gangrene is a type of tissue death which occurs as the result of an insufficient supply of blood. Without treatment, it can quickly spread to vital organs and lead to death.
It was extremely upsetting to hear him say that word, amputation. I was scared out of my mind because I couldn't imagine life without my legs. He went to my heel and he felt a pulse, so he said to the nurse, I'm not going to take them off yet, but we're going to have to keep a close eye on it, and if we lose that pulse in her heel, then call me back immediately. And he left the room. I was so glad when that doctor was heading out the door. After he left, I thought to myself, I don't ever want to see that doctor again, because I just did not want to lose my legs.
Over the next several days, doctors find themselves racing against the clock, performing countless blood tests in an all-out effort to determine why Diane's legs have turned pitch black.
They test me for leukemia. They tested me for some types of lymphoma cancer. They tested me for rheumatoid arthritis. And day after day, I got no answer. They had no idea why I had had this attack, what it meant, what it was connected to, nothing. I rested in bed under the covers and I prayed for an answer.
But the tests reveal nothing. And after 5 days, the swelling and discoloration simply fade away on their own, leaving the doctors completely baffled.
They decided to discharge me because they didn't know what was wrong or what had brought it on. It was horrible. I mean, how many times can my legs keep coming back? I didn't know.
Frightened and frustrated, Diane returns home, but the mysterious attacks only intensify.
What started to be 1 day a week became 2 days a week, then 3 days a week of flaring. Like I'd work through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and by Thursday, Friday, I was having a flare-up. And by the Saturday night, I was completely unable to walk. I was embarrassed to really talk about it or show anyone what was happening, but it was becoming increasingly more difficult to hide the symptoms.
I remember her being on crutches at school. Her legs looked like just the surface blood vessels had just burst, and it would turn real red, bruised and black and blue, and it slowed her down.
I wasn't able to give my students everything that they needed. I was distracted by my own pain, and no matter how hard I tried to overcome it, I wasn't able to walk well or play with them. I was missing more and more work. Going outside or standing seemed to bring on a flare-up. It seemed the only safe thing to do was stay in bed. I was afraid I was doomed to suffer like this for the rest of my life, in cycles of extreme pain. I saw my life slipping away, and I was losing all hope.
As the months turn into years, Diane's pain and distress take an ever-increasing toll on her marriage.
Diane started pulling away from Scott because she didn't want to be a burden on him.
The marriage was suffering terribly. I felt unlovable. There was a day that finally came that I felt so broken that I thought Scott would be better off without me. And I remember seeing the look on his face when I told him that I wanted to leave. I really felt like I was dying inside, and he didn't want me to go. But I went. I thought I was doing him a favor. I made choices for him that weren't mine to make. And I ruined everything that mattered to me most.
It was like she was having a nervous breakdown. Diane hit rock bottom.
I would pray that someone would just shoot me and put me out of my misery, because I couldn't imagine living this life anymore. I was desperate to be put out of my pain.
For the past 2.5 years, Diane Dyke has been plagued with excruciatingly painful episodes of swelling and horrific discoloration in her legs. And although she's seen dozens of doctors, not one of them has been able to explain her baffling symptoms.
My My doctor was really frustrated with my case. He didn't know what else to do, so he decided that he was going to send me to the University of South Florida to see if they could help figure out what this mystery disease was.
In February of 1993, Diane makes an appointment with dermatologist Dr. Philip Schenefeld at the University of South Florida in Tampa.
We talked with her about her problem and examined her skin. Clinically on the skin, she had little sort of purplish marks, what's called palpable purpura, that were slightly raised. There were also some reddish areas. As she sat there in our office, she was gradually getting a few more of the purple spots moving up her leg. I don't recall having seen anything with the purpura where they were just appearing right in front of us.
It's a critical clue for Dr. Schenefeld, and in that moment, the mysterious case of Diane Dyke suddenly comes into focus.
Our office tends to be kept fairly cool. The spreading made us wonder whether there was some factor, such as cold, that was making her have these spread. At that point, I felt that we needed to test for a specific protein that might be related to cold exposure that might be involved in this process.
He seemed rather confident, but I had also heard that from the doctor before that, so I knew better than to get my hopes up too high.
To confirm his hunch, Dr. Schenefeld has Diane's blood drawn and sent to the lab for testing.
It was exhausting to wait to hear something that could be great news or it could be bad news, but I just wanted to hear some news so we could get to the bottom of it.
The wait seems endless, but finally, 6 days later, the results are in.
My hunch was confirmed. Diane did have cryoglobulinemia.
Cryoglobulinemia is a blood disorder in which the body produces excessive amounts of defective antibodies called cryoglobulins. In healthy individuals, antibodies help fight bacteria and viruses. But in patients like Diane, dangerous amounts of the faulty antibodies are produced. When her temperature drops significantly below 98.6 degrees, these cryoglobulins can cluster together in blood vessels, blocking circulation and inflaming the vessel walls.
Cryoglobulinemia means cold, globe-like structure in the blood. In Diane's blood, what's happening is that the blood, as it chills, it turns into a sort of a semi-solid. Just like if you mix up a batch of Jell-O and pour it into a mold and you let it sit and then you cool it, her blood turns into the jelly-like material.
The moment that he told me that I had cryoglobulinemia, I remember feeling as if I was in a vacuum. I could see his mouth moving, but I really wasn't making out what the words were that he was saying. That just really didn't make any sense to me.
Dr. Schenefeld goes on to explain that all of Diane's seemingly unrelated symptoms were triggered by the air conditioning in her home and school.
When the cooling occurs and the blood gels in the little vessels in the skin, blood behind it can't get through. The cryoglobulins were also signaling an inflammatory process to start up in the blood vessel. Then that weakens the vessel wall, and so the vessel can actually break and have blood leak out.